The Spotlight, shining a light on podcasts and videos that have caught our attention.
Hi and welcome to The Spotlight. I'm Jen Spiker, and today I'm highlighting a brand new podcast series that's been added to the Vision app. Sunburnt Souls is hosted by Dave Quak, a Baptist pastor with bipolar. Dave speaks to a different guest each episode on a variety of topics relating to mental health. In this episode of the podcast, Dave's guest is his wife, Jess, who shares her journey of living with a spouse with mental illness.
The Spotlight with Jen Spiker.
Jess, I just want to start by saying, look, what is the best parts of being married to someone with mental health conditions, especially mine with bipolar? Like, what is it? What's awesome about it? Let's start there.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Everyone has good and tricky parts about their personality, about their mental health, whatever that may look like. And so for you, you've just got like extra things that come with your diagnosis, I suppose. But definitely you are so good at bringing fun into I often, laugh, like my life with you will never be boring. There is no way for that. Sometimes it might be nice to wish for a bit more of a
you wouldn't
boring
mind a
life.
bit more bore.
Especially in your manic times when there's a new hobby each go round, and it helps push me out of my comfort zone and it helps bring adventure into our lives and into the kids' lives. And there's that real positive aspect. And I think that's the way God even uses that part of your personality and just the way that your brain functions. It can be a really beautiful and fun thing. Our house is not the quiet house on the street. It's always full of there's loud laughter or loud music or loud screaming and running around the house just for fun. And I think that's something that's definitely a real benefit to having you in our lives and having the way that, your mental health, it does affect you, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a negative effect. It's just different.
Yeah. And that's one thing we don't want to ever do on Sunburnt Souls is make it seem or appear like anyone with mental illness is a write-off. Like there are so many good things.
Yeah.
And especially deeper beneath that is a person that God loves who is just on his or her own journey. There's a couple of people actually who write around, bipolar being my superpower. And even Stephen Fry speaks into this a fair bit, saying like so much of his success was built on the fact that he did have bipolarization, and if you got him at the right time in the right situation, he'd kill it. And Stephen Fry has been extremely successful. Yeah. Yeah. So there are the great parts, and I would say that the same thing of all mental health conditions, I guess.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I think even marriage in and of itself, we will have our own struggles because of your bipolar, but it doesn't mean that if you didn't have bipolar, we wouldn't have struggles anyway.
Yeah, that's right.
Because we are differing personalities. We have each our strengths and each our weaknesses. In a way, I kind of see mental health, even though there can be battles that come with it, it's kind of a neutral thing. But what you choose to do with that can either be a positive thing or it can be something that's harmful for you and those around you. And
I like
so
that.
it's really something that I think is really commendable about you, and something that I really admire is, for the most part, is that you allow God to use your ups and your downs to draw you closer to God and to let him use you to do lots of things that impact other lives in really positive ways. And that can be the case, I suppose, for any kind of mental health journey that anyone is on.
Yeah.
And it's just knowing that, that some parts of that might be harder than others. But that's going to, even if we were either of us was, married to Jesus who's perfect, you'd still have marriage issues because there's still someone in the marriage who's not perfect.
Yeah.
You'd find his perfectness maybe annoying or frustrating, or you just want to, it's not actually, necessarily going to be all hard just because someone has a mental health diagnosis.
That would be frustrating because in every argument you'd lose.
You're the wrong one. Yeah, that's it.
So with that then, there are some great things. I mean, we've had some amazing adventures, and I think even with spiritual gifts like the apostolic gift that likes to initiate and start new endeavors and stuff, when you couple that with someone who's got, bipolar in their manic, but at like 70% manic, where it's still very functioning and very, fruitful. When those two things collide, you can achieve a lot in a short amount of time. And together we've been able to do some pretty cool things in ministry.
Yeah.
And our gifts offset each other or complement each other is probably a better word for it. So there are some pros, but today I really do want to dig into what is difficult, because you're not alone. There's, mental health or mental illness affects 1 in 4 Australians directly, and then probably the rest of the population indirectly because of the supporters and the family members and everything. Why don't we start there? So, what has been a struggle for you being married to somebody like me?
It's interesting because I actually listened to your podcast, and you said, I think it's the hardest times are when you're sort of on the depressive side of your mental health swing in your bipolar from, manic to depressive sort of deal. And then I kind of giggled to myself because absolutely no.
Okay.
For me, it's definitely harder when you're manic.
Okay.
Because with that comes specifically some aspects that can be difficult to reason with.
Okay.
And that is just simply part of the hardships of that. It can be one of the great times too, but it can be difficult when you've got an idea in your head that you think is going to change the world and it's going to be amazing, and all we have to do is just uproot our entire life and do it by tomorrow. That can be tricky to reason with when I seem like the fun police.
Okay.
And there have been times where early on in our journey there were some hurtful words spoken because you were still growing as a human, and you're still God was still working through your heart and that, and that it became a really difficult thing to have a lack of consistency with where we were going or our vision necessarily as a family. So that can be really tricky.
Do you mean hurtful words around the fun police stuff? Or? Yeah,
that it's my fault, I'm holding you back, and we could do so much more, and why do we always have to do what you want to do when I'm just going, no, remember we're just being faithful to what God's called us to do. So that's tricky, and I think there's an element too. I remember we had a lovely bipolar man come into our life quite a few years ago, and he was sharing about his journey with us, and there was something that he said that really sort of raised a flag for, hang on a second, I think there's something we need to take a closer look in your life. When he said it's really difficult when he's manic to not have an enemy, that there's, just someone might say something, and no matter what it could come, what kind of heart it comes from, just suddenly that person is the enemy.
Yeah.
And the difficult thing, I think, for us is that when I become that person, where you have seen me as the enemy trying to thwart your good life, and that becomes really a really tricky place to live. And that's where, I don't know how we would live without God, really, because I think the beauty of it is that you have your own thing going on with God and you come back and you apologize and love me well. And for me, I go to God for my strength and sense of, foundation, which I think I probably have to do. Maybe even more as a preservation thing, more than if it wasn't the case that, I was married to someone with bipolar. But
It's interesting you bring that up. I mean, we've never spoken about that person talking about the enemy thing, but it's true, because I even notice in my life I don't have, vanilla relationships. I love people passionately, or I wish them demise.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and they're for you or they're against you, and I am like, no, they actually maybe nothing you. They really just don't care.
Yeah, that's right. It's an overinflated self view, really.
Yeah, and so that can be tricky, because it can be even that the same person can be your enemy one moment and then they're in front of you and you're like, oh no, I love this person to death. They're my favorite person on earth. And a little bit where I need to be careful that I don't start trying to manage you. And that's become a tricky thing, where it's not my responsibility to mother you and to try and be the Holy Spirit and convict you when you're, doing something that I think isn't a healthy choice. But still obviously having those conversations that need to be had. But it's actually not my job to try and micromanage that in your world, your relationships, your choices. So that was a hard lesson for me.
Yeah, I remember when we went through this chat and you said to me, like, I came to the realization that you don't need me, right? And at the time, based on my history of rational responses to things like that, I got obviously my knickers in a knot and threw the toys out of the cot and, what? How dare you? For a week. And then I got such a sense of relief, because no person should need another person to the point that they depend on them for their salvation or for their existence. And when you said you didn't need me, though at the start I was like, man, this is hardcore, it made sense to me how much you love me, because then you choose to want me.
On the Spotlight, we've been listening to a conversation between Dave Quak and his wife, Jess, on Sunburnt Souls. It's encouraging to hear how Jess' faith has provided comfort and strength in adversity. New episodes of Sunburnt Souls are added to the Vision app each week. Find them by tapping the podcast tab and searching for Sunburnt Souls. My name is Jen Spiker. Join me next time on The Spotlight as we hear more of this story, including how the couple have navigated Jess' own mental and physical health challenges.
For more great podcasts and videos like the one featured today, check out vision.org.au or the free Vision app.